change, unfortunately, because of uncertainty, it might erode your sense of competence. Every human being wants to be in an environment where they feel competent. What happens most of the time in workplaces is that someone has worked so hard for 20 years to be competent in what they do, and there's a sense of confidence that comes from their competence. And when change is happening, they feel that sense of competence is eroded or is challenged or is threatened, and then they push back against change. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Organisational Behaviour with Sipiwe Moyo. I've missed you so much, man. I don't even know what I'm doing in this episode. As you know, I haven't done this particular episode where I'm just in front of the camera alone. We've been having so many guests, but I don't want to lie, I've been becoming a little bit jealous because my guests are becoming more famous than me. So I want to do a bit of an experiment. Please let me know on the comments. Please let me know in the comments. Do you like these episodes where I'm the only one speaking? Do you always love guests? Do you think a bit of variety will do? So that's what I want to do today. Just me and the camera and just reflections. Some of you might know, I've just come back from attending the Organisational Behaviour Institute Building Better Workplaces Conference 2025. It was amazing. It was incredible. So one of the things I'm hoping to do in this particular entry is just to give you highlights from the conference. So I'll give conference highlights for a few minutes. I want to just also reflect about some of the things that are coming up in the organizational behavior space. Maybe we'll call them news roundup. No? Yes? Yeah? Something like that. And then we will then close. So I'm hoping with this entry will go for something like about 20-25 minutes. But I really want to let you know what happened at the conference and maybe do a bit of a summary. So it was on the 19th and 20th of February 2025. And by the way, we're going to have this conference on the 18th and 19th of February 2026. So you might as well book, you might as well block the date, you might as well save the date. It's going to be amazing. So building better workplaces is an incredible concept for us because the idea and the central premise around it is that work doesn't have to suck, that work doesn't have to be a drag, that work can be a place where, passions are unleashed and people can really have fun at work while performing at the same time. I've always argued that all the outcomes that we want as leaders, outcomes like productivity, performance, all of those outcomes come from an understanding of human behavior. And so the conference was about that. So we had a lot of HR people, a lot of industrial and organizational psychologists, we have leaders, and it was incredible to see that. I think just a bit of summary. Obviously, I can't tell you everything that happened in the conference, but just a bit of summary I think would help. Started the conference with Helen Nicholson, who's the Chief Excitement Officer at the networking company. Helen spoke a lot about networking, and she reminded me of this quote, and I don't know who said the quote, but the quote says something like, "Isn't it incredible that the people who are always complaining that it's now about who you know, it's no longer about what you know, they never really go out and meet someone." So it's incredible. So those of us who attend conferences a lot, conferences can be a really good place to meet people and network. Yes, it's still about what you know, but it's also about who you know, and conferences are a great platform for that. And so Helen puts it like this: when you know people who can solve most of the problems in your life. And that's exactly what happened. You meet a lot of people, and once you know people in your life, you can be able to call somebody. Even if you don't know that person, someone else knows that person. So it was incredible to start with Helen. And then we were then inspired by Graham Codrington on strategic imagination and reminding us that while we can't really predict the future, we can definitely create the future that we want. We can inculcate a culture of experimenting in the team, a culture of asking, what if we could do this? What is preventing us from doing this? And a quick tip out of that is just to have some of those exploratory meetings with your team where you ask them open-ended questions. Things like, if we didn't care who gets the credit in this team, what would we do? If money was not a problem, what would you attempt? And those questions, open us up into a culture of experimenting, and you just find out that many people in your team might have great ideas that you didn't even know about. I often see leaders talk to me and said, so and so in my team is so shy, he is so reserved. But I've seen that person on Saturday, and that person is not shy and is not reserved. I've seen them at Groove. I go to those places for research purposes. Because that's not my scene. But I teach young people. I have to know what young people are thinking about. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And you see that this person is not shy at all. But there comes a point where, if you feel like your leader is not listening to the questions that you're asking, the ideas that you're having, sometimes you just get resigned and no longer feel like you must contribute. So that was a great session. Lerato Mahlasela, who is my boss for life. Lerato Mahlasela is the managing executive of corporate education at Gibbs, who's transitioning to a new role very soon, and we're looking forward to that. Spoke a lot about leadership and encouraged us to lead with care, emphasizing that results come through relationships. It is incredible how what people in your team will do for you when they feel like you care for them personally, when they feel like you're treating them as human beings. And this idea that care and performance are mutually exclusive, it's not true, that you can care for people and still hold them accountable for performance. And Lerato Mahlasela spoke a lot about that. Obviously, I'm not going to highlight everything she said. You can look it out on either on our LinkedIn page on Organisational Behaviour Institute, or you follow Lerato on LinkedIn. And then we had a business leaders panel with the executive director of 21st Century, Siveno Dada. Is it 21st Century? Is it 21st Century, or what is it called? Yes, it is 21st Century. Got it right. And we had Sabelo Mieni, who's the CEO of... Konje, what is Sabelo Mieni's CEO of? There's two guys in the studio, and they're going to act like they don't know. Sisekelo, Sustainability Institute, and we had Lerato Mahlasela as well, and we had Dr. Matt. So those are the three people that we had on the panel, and they spoke a lot about some of the things that they believe are changing in the world of work, the future of work, what's changing and what it means for leaders, and how culture and leadership need to evolve. They spoke a lot about just understanding that one of the biggest takeaways I think I had from that panel is that AI is not just replacing job, it's changing how we work together. So instead of this idea of AI versus humans, we should be thinking about AI plus humans, augmenting decision making rather than replacing people. For example, I think there are companies who have started using real-time feedback on employee well-being so that they can spot early signs of burnout before managers even notice. So people using some of these wearables. Do you see mine? Can you see mine? Can you see mine? Using some of these wearables, you can be able to anticipate and see early signs of burnout. In fact, Graham Coddington spoke about that what we do generally is not preventative medicine. What we do is we deal with people once they are sick. So many people are starting to experiment about how they can use AI for real-time feedback on employee well-being. And I think it's something worth thinking about. And I think someone in that panel mentioned a stat that was very interesting. Something like, I think by 2030, 75% of the workforce will be millennials and Gen Zs. And the idea that they don't just want a paycheck. Money is important, but money matters up to a certain point. People want purpose, they want growth, and they want the psychological safety as well. So, but the truth is that all of us want purpose. All of us wants to be treated well. It's not a Gen Z and millennials thing. I think I'm pushing back against this idea that millennials and Gen Zs are the only people who want purpose, who want growth, who want autonomy, who want to feel like they're competent. Each and every human being want a job that gives them a little bit of autonomy, that gives them a sense of coherence. Hey, English. Ow! Sense of coherence, but everybody wants that, and I think once you lean into some of the work we're doing in organizational behavior, you can be able to do that. So make sure that you always communicate the bigger purpose. Link what people do on a day-to-day basis with the bigger purpose. Why we are here. What are we trying to achieve? That thing unleashes discretionary effort at work. And so leaders who fail to adapt to that particular ship, who still lead in a command and control basis, are going to struggle. In fact, if you lead with that idea of command and control, one of the things you're going to learn is that people are just going to give you the bare minimum. I'll do what I need to do, and then I'll go home, and I'll reserve my ideas, I'll reserve my energy for my side hustles, for the things that I do on Saturdays, for church, for anything else that I do. So we have to be very careful about that. And many people now have reached a point where they would rather quit than work in a toxic environment, and we need strategies to do that. And so that panel had some really, really great strategies around that. Stembiso Phakathi, who is a cultural transformation expert, spoke also on day one and made us really rethink cultural transformation and making us think about, when you are implementing change, and there's always people who are early adopters. Those are the people who anything you say they like. Anything you say they're like, my boss is so inspirational. They love your hair, they love your perfume, they love anything you say. Those are the early adopters, right? Anytime you implement change, you'll always have those early adopters who love everything you do. But you'll also have, on the other extreme, people who will never convert. But most of the people are really in the middle. They will support once you answer some basic questions about what they want to know about the change. So those people need to be approached with some curiosity, not judgment. And change is a fascinating thing. I'm going to use this other camera because I think we're going to put this one on a short on TikTok. Ow, dramatic. Camera two. I think change for me is really, really fascinating because I think they're telling me I should shift, no? I need the mic. Keep the mic on. I love hearing them. They don't want to talk, but I love hearing the background noise. We're creating chaos here. So I was thinking about this the other day. I was facilitating some conversations with the team going through change. And I said something very powerful, even if I have to say so myself, that one of the reasons people resist change is that change, unfortunately, because of uncertainty, it might erode your sense of competence. Every human being wants to be in an environment where they feel competent. I don't know if you've seen this. When you're going to gym and you do a spinning class at the gym, you can often tell who is competent in that class based on where they sit. So people who've been doing that for a very long time sit in the front because they have a sense of competence. They want to show off. There's a link between competence and confidence, right? And when you are new at the gym, you normally take the bike at the far end, like at the back, because you don't have confidence. So what happens most of the time in workplaces is that someone has worked so hard for 20 years to be competent in what they do, and there's a sense of confidence that comes from their competence. And when change is happening, they feel that sense of competence is eroded or is challenged or is threatened, and then they push back against change. So sometimes people like that, you just have to address their fears. You just have to address their questions, and those people will come on board. So don't discount people who are not necessarily early adopters to change and think those people will never come on board. So Stia spoke about something similar, and I'm adding some of my experiences, and I think it was really, really cool. We then had the HR director panel. The HR director panel was facilitated by the great Luyanda. Luyanda Duma Kumbuza. Yo, Luyanda. Yes. Luyanda had her own media team. I love people who do content. Luyanda had her own media team, and then they were following her, and then they had these incredible reels. But that's not the point. I think she was absolutely incredible. So we had Dr. Sanengidi in that panel. We had Abe Hotle in that panel. We had Andy Saliba in that panel, and we had Johan Botes in that panel. And they discussed a lot of things. But one of the things they discussed is that, culture is now the strategy, but you have to design it. We often say culture, it's strategy for breakfast, but a big insight from the conference was that culture doesn't just happen. You have to be very intentional about bringing it, about building it. And this idea of psychological safety is the game changer. And one of the things that came out is that those of us who are in HR, we're going to have to be very intentional about using analytics in a predictive form. We have to use predictive analytics to know talent, to know what people are thinking about, and to create great experience. So remember the famous Google Project Aristotle, where they found that the number one factor of high performance team wasn't IQ, it wasn't experiences, it wasn't resources, it was this idea of psychological safety. We have to think a lot about that. And then the closing keynote on the day was Terence Taylor. Terence Taylor was incredible. We didn't expect Terence Taylor to be there in person. He was supposed to be online. And then in the morning, he's like, "Tada! I am here." And we didn't know what to do. He was supposed to be in Texas. Terence Taylor flew from Texas to come to our conference. Yet there's someone in Pretoria here who said the conference is far. You said the conference is far. Someone came from Texas. Sorry, guys. I'm so dramatic. But I think Terence spoke a lot about his time at Google. He spoke a lot about his time at Facebook or Meta. He spoke a lot about his time at Discovery. So this guy has really worked for some really, really great organizations. And one of the things we're really looking forward to seeing, Terence Taylor has now started something, I think they call it African Academy of AI. And that is based on the story when he went to India and they were doing some really incredible things about how India was positioning for themselves for AI. He mentioned the number of people at Google who actually came from India was incredible. And what he's trying to do is to make sure here in the continent we have more people who are going to lead the conversation. And so please check Terence Taylor out. So that was only day one. All of that stuff was really, really only day one, which was absolutely incredible. All right, so guys, we then had day two at the OBI conference. I hope this video is not too long for you. I hope you're following the trends. Day two started with Steph Duplessis, who's the global speaker and a culture expert. My buddy Steph had us in a whirlwind of emotions. I don't know. Steph, when Steph talks, you can cry and laugh at the same time. You're like, you're not sure what to do because he'll provoke you. And I think the central message is that before we can transform a workplace culture, we must first see the people who make up that culture. Only by truly understanding and connecting with people can we begin to ignite meaningful change. That was really, really amazing. Do you see people in your team? It makes me remember a story of how I sometimes teach at business schools, and in 2023 I had not gone to teach at Henley Business School for a while, and so I arrive at Henley, and the security guard says to me, sawubona mehlo madala. That's Zulu for mehlo madala. It's Zulu for I haven't seen you in a while. And I felt so emotional because first of all, it shows that this person does see that I haven't been around for a very long time. I felt seen, I felt acknowledged, and so on. So it's amazing what happens when someone really feels seen. So do we pause enough as leaders? I don't know where I read this book where someone was saying, as a leader, even when you're walking the floor, work with your head up, look at people, greet them, acknowledge them. That's what our job is as a leader. So Steph provoked us to make sure that until we can see people, unless we are interested in what he called the life score of people, how authentically happy they are in their own personal lives, we cannot expect them to be happy at work. And so that was incredible. Followed by Professor Theo Feldsman, who's a really legend in industrial psychology, a work psychologist who forced us to rethink how we view organizations. I think moving away from a mechanistic view, he emphasized embracing a dynamic fusion of opposites. For example, he challenged us to shift from seeking a single solution for balance, to recognizing the value of integrating contrasts such as stability and agility. That we're living in times where you might have to balance the contrast where one day you look like everything is stable and then we need agility at the same time. Centralization and decentralization. A truly thought-provoking session that he led us in, and you can think about that as well. Andy Saliba presented an incredible keynote on ethical leadership and overcoming something we call moral disengagement. I think in the workplace, in organizational behavior in particular, there's a concept called moral disengagement where people are disengaged, but they have a moral attribution and explanation for why they're disengaged. They point to some of the things that are happening in the workplace and they say, this is the reason why I'm not engaged. This is the reason why I'm disengaged. So understanding moral disengagement and overcoming it through authentic leadership is a very important thing. In fact, there was a quote that she said when she spoke about authentic leadership, that the mask is heavy. Eventually it will lift off. So the mask is heavy. We need to create an organization where people can be themselves. By the way, let me know, please, whether this kind of synthesis, this summary is working, or you just want a guest. I'm wasting your time. Let me know, please. And then we had a session by Ninette and Alice from Momentum, who presented a really incredible session around job crafting. You would know that in this particular podcast, we talk a lot about job crafting, which is the idea that you can give employees just 1 or 2% of crafting their own job, where they can come up with a few things that excite them and infuse them into their jobs. And when people craft their jobs, it sometimes gives them energy to do the other parts of their jobs that they might not find meaningful. That energy can then be used to do the other stuff that might feel mundane, that might feel like it's not maybe igniting their passions and so on. But what Ninette and Alice shared was very important. They said something like, job crafting is not about giving employees free rein to do whatever they want, right? But rather it's about finding the balance. It's a continuum. So if you imagine on the other extreme, from having no control over one's role whatsoever to having full control. But job crafting is somewhere in the middle. The approach is that it's that balance that organization must allow employees to reshape their jobs within the framework of their roles, within the framework of what they do. Otherwise, it's just free for all. And I think that was great. We then had Dr. Ashika Pillay, who's an executive and well-being coach, who challenged the audience to rethink the traditional approach to workforce well-being. She argued that by the time someone goes on an employee assistance program, the EAP, it is too late because that is reactive, and instead advocated for an integrated approach of proactive well-being that focuses on both individual and organizational health. So she emphasized the importance of blending performance and well-being, that idea that there is a clear correlation between performance and well-being, even though well-being is good for its own sake, but it is clear that there is a link between performance and well-being. And she really encouraged businesses to take a holistic, ongoing approach to supporting their teams and fostering sustainable success and thriving work environments. So that was really, really great. I'm about to close. And Ande and Herman Smith from Nedbank also presented a really, really great session around behavioral economics, changing culture based on behavioral economics. It was really good to see because Andy is an organizational psychologist and Herman Smith is a behavioral economist, and they talked about how you can use things like nudges, things like understanding behavioral science to change a culture. And they did some really, really cool experiments of what actually works to change a culture. And I think this idea of using behavioral economics and nudges and behavioral science to change culture, there's so much we can still do on that. And I think we want to explore that a little bit more, but you can look into that as well. Second last in the session, we had a panel about how we made our values come alive, facilitated by the incredible Mlungisi Nkosi, who's a mathematician and content creator. We had Mahlaku Maluleke from Santam. We had Bongamningisa from MTN, and we had Pamela Rosley from PepsiCo, and each and every one of them highlighted a case study of how you can turn values into actions, into behaviors that we can live every day. And I think the idea that we had there is that if you continue to have values on the wall and leave them there, that unfortunately makes people despondent, because they can see those who do not live the values, but nothing is done. And it is about measure the impact of values. Make sure that you highlight. There must be an award for people living the values, and most organizations have started doing this. There should be a clear reward for people who are living the values, and there should be a clear negative for people who are not living the values. And that was the idea. And then lastly, I had the honor of just synthesizing the conference, which is what I've just done for you now. So incredible time we had at the Organisational Behaviour Institute conference. And I think some of the ideas that I've been thinking about after that is just the idea and the science of effective teams. And I think we need to explore this a little bit more. One of the powerful insights that came from the delegates was that we must remind ourselves that when we run teams, not all conflict is bad, that high-performance teams encourage task-orientated conflict, right? Challenging ideas, not the person. Challenging ideas, debating strategies, but they avoid personal attacks. That's the most important thing around conflict. Avoid personal attack, avoid personalizing conflict, but you must be able to have constructive debates. You must be able to have fewer bottlenecks and make better decisions. And so I closed by really invoking people to have radical ownership from blame to solutions when it comes to creating great place to work. That all of us must have radical ownership and say to ourselves, I'm going to move from a culture of blame to the culture of solutions and accountability, that those who do not create a culture they want will have to endure the culture they get. So it was an incredible conference, and I hope these insights are helping you. Those of you who were there at the conference, please write here on the comments. Please just let us know what stood out for you, and I'm looking forward to having you at the next conference in 2026, 18 and 19 February it is. There's some ideas that we must probably go to other provinces in South Africa. We're thinking about them. But for now, please let us know what stood out for you. So thank you very much for tuning in to this another episode of Organizational Behavior with Siphiwe Moyo. I hope this was valuable. And if you can, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I don't know where you click when you subscribe. Click here, subscribe. See you next time. Bye.